Great. Good morning to you all once again. Our topic for today's lectures is internationalization of FM. So essentially, we will be looking at the various processes and strategies that firms that aspire to go and operate in the larger international market go through. Essentially, the changes that a normal firm that may be confined to a particular country in terms of its operations, how it may change and evolve to eventually become a firm that is operating across the length and breadth of multiple countries. So that is what we'll be looking at. And beyond that, we will also consider the number of penetration strategies that are available to domestic firms if they aspire to go international. So those are the two key things we'll be looking at. Implicit in the changes that these domestic firms go through include being at the domestic stage, international stage, multinational stage, global, and finally transnational stage. So by the end of this lecture, my expectation is that whenever you are using any of these themes to describe a firm, you should use it appropriately. So you should be able to distinguish between what an international firm is. You should be able to differentiate it from what a multinational firm is. And you should be able to differentiate between a global and a transnational firm in that order. So yes, that is it. Generally speaking, the evolution of multinational enterprises is one of the topical issues that has taken a center stage when it comes to international business as well as international HR. And the reason why it has taken a center stage is that it tends to educate practitioners as well as researchers on the do's and don'ts which firms can apply in their operations in order to flourish in their international commerce. So one of the most common approaches that can be adopted to understand how firms evolve when they have a global focus is by centering on the geographical scope within which they will be operating. They will be operating their trade. So if you take a sober look at how they are applying their trade along geographical lines, then you will be able to discern the stages that it went through to go global. Now, the admonishment here is that firms generally do not enter the international markets haphazardly. So they don't just wake up one day and decide that we want to go, but rather it should be based on deliberate strategies for market selection and entry. So a decision of a firm to enter or not to enter into the international market should be contingent on some calculated risk, well thought through options. You weigh the strengths and the weaknesses of your entry, and you also compare a number of markets that are available. Are you interested in dominating only the West African sub-region? Are you interested in becoming a giant in the on the African continent? Are you also thinking about going into the European markets or the Asian markets? All these considerations must be made. And depending on the strengths and weaknesses that one derive from making these considerations, a suitable decision ensues thereafter. But the notion of gradual international involvement was first identified by Bartlett and Ghoshal, who noted that most firms that eventually become a global giant in their operations go through distinct stages or metamorphosis. And these distinct stages, as per Bartlett and Ghoshal, include being a domestic firm, or they start with the domestic stage, then they emerge to become an international firm, and they metamorphose to become a multinational firm, which can also be characterized as multi-country or multi-domestic firm. And later on, they become global firms, and finally, they become transnational firms. But I have to point it out to you here that the 5 stages that have been identified by Bartlett and Ghoshal are ideal stages, which implies that a firm may transcend the domestic and become an international firm and stay there, whilst other firms may progress and metamorphose to become a multinational firm. Some may even go beyond the multinationality to become a global firm, wherein the trade that they apply will be known across the length and breadth of the world. Others may also proceed and enter into the transnational stage. So there are stages. It doesn't mean every firm is operating at the same level as we speak now. It depends on a number of characteristics and considerations. So pretty much so we'll be starting to look at the specific way you can characterize each of these firms. So extending this typology, the forms of internationalization are described in the next slides. So the first stage is the domestic stage. Now, the domestic stage, according to Bartlett and Ghoshal, is characterized by the degree to which the operations of the firm in question is confined to a home country. So, which means that the operation of the firm or the company can be found in just a single country. If the said company in question is flourishing and its trade is well known and patronized by only a single country, then we are dealing with a domestic country, or the firm finds itself at the domestic stage of the internationalization. Because the concentration of the firm's operations is within a single country, the focus of the organization is said to be the domestic needs and preferences. So whatever the customers that are found in the country source after, that is what the company in question will also go all out to churn out. For that reason, at the domestic stage of internationalization, firms are said to have minimal, if any, international involvement. And the reason why they do so is that almost all the profit share that they are gaining from the trade that they are applying comes from a particular country context. And so why will it be necessary for them to be thinking outside what is happening in their country? So their fixation will be on their country. And at this point in time of the firm, what is the implication for the practice of international HRM? Some of the implications that these domestic firms experience as far as IHRM is concerned is that Their recruitment and selection activities usually focus on local talent. So when they are doing recruitment and selection, because they want to find someone that has the know-how and the understanding of the culture of the specific country where they are operating, they are inclined to go in for individuals that are talented in that particular country. In terms of their HR policies, programs, and procedures, their HR policies and practices are also aligned with the domestic regulations and culture. And this is pretty much straightforward because they are guided by the labor law and the legal arrangements that prevail in that single country where they are operating. And for that matter, it becomes necessary that they comply and operate within the dictates of the regulations of that particular country. It is also said that at the domestic stage of internationalization, such firms have limited need for cross-cultural training or international HR policies. So they seldomly think about what others may be doing in different countries because the expectations, tastes and preferences, rules of engagement that may prevail in other jurisdictions may not be so much relevant for the regulations that maintain in the single country where they are operating. So that is why we say they have limited need for cross-cultural training. In the same vein, the cultural practices that prevail in the country where they are operating may not have any relevance or similarity to the other countries which may be surrounding them. And so it becomes necessary that they center on cultural activities that are more relevant for their country of operation. So that is why it becomes not necessary for them to be thinking outside the country where other countries that they are surrounded with. So typically we can say, as an example of a firm that is thriving as far as this domestic stage of internationalization is concerned, we can think about Casapreco. So if you take Casapreco Company Limited, they have a number of traits or characteristics which can be likened to the domestic stage of internationalization. So typically, if you look at the operations and the trade that Casapreco complies, their operation is solely within Ghana. So they are notable for the production of alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages tailored towards the local markets. Although in recent times, COVID has made some of their other products much more relevant for other neighboring countries, but their initial operation and fixation was within the local markets of Ghana. And in terms of their focus, we can also say the Casapreco focused on the Ghanaian market in terms of the Ghanaian taste and preferences.
Sir, please.
And,
The line is breaking.
oh, is that so? But is it better now?
Yes, sir. So, sir, please repeat the Casapreco. Focus on for us. The line was breaking, so.
All right. So I'm saying that in terms of the focus of Casapreco's operations, we can say their prime focus was to appeal to Ghanaian taste and preferences, and not what maybe Nigerians or Ivorians are thinking. So typically, if you pick their product like Alomo Bitters, it is based on the pristine and the local taste that we have for some of these herbal alcoholic beverages. And that was what their intention or their focus was based in terms of their products. Now, if you also look at their international involvement, in its early stage, Casapreco did not engage in significant marketing or exporting activities. It is just recently that COVID has taught them that some of their alcoholic products may be much relevant in the fight against COVID-19. So their sanitizers and their alcohol that you can, I'm trying to say, the alcohol that we spray on our hand to kill the coronavirus. Okay, so other countries are now patronizing it. But prior to that, most of the individuals that were sending Casapreco or smuggling Casapreco, alcoholic beverages outside Ghana, were doing it at their own accord. So if, for instance, I am traveling to UK and I still want to experience the feel of drinking Casapreco, then I may put about 3 or 4 bottles in my bag. If I get there and someone is interested in buying, then I do that trading. It was along that line that their beverages were crossing across to other countries. So that is it. That would be a typical example of a domestic stage of internationalization. All right. So we are now looking beyond the domestic stage. In the early stages of a firm's decision to go international, which means we are now going to talk about an international firm, international activities is often limited to efforts at import and export. And at this stage, there is relatively little impact on the organization and its international HRM, other than possible training opportunities to ensure that employees have the knowledge necessary to carry out cross-border commerce. And the exports or imports arrangement may include creation of an international purchasing desk that are usually taken upon by the marketing or the purchasing department. So there is little impact on the form of the organization. All right, so all this plenty English. What am I trying to say? I am essentially trying to say that when a firm now realizes that about 10 to 20% of the revenue that it is generating is coming from another country other than the domestic environment where it is operating, then it attracts its attention. So just imagine all of a sudden Casapreco is getting 20% more requests of the products from, let's say, Nigeria or Ivory Coast. The moment a firm reaches this pedestal, then it gets to its attention to start creating an international desk that can serve these new markets where it is getting attention from. So that may lead to what we call an international division. And the key role of this international division is to provide goods and services to through the division to its customers that are found in these international markets. So as much as possible, you want to get closer to them, understand their challenges, understand their tastes and their preferences, and based on that, be in a position to serve them much better. So once a firm reaches this pedestal, then that is what we mean by an international firm, wherein about 20 to 10% of its revenue will be coming from another country. So in the strict sense of it, we are talking about a domestic firm having another international division serving the country where the division is found. So we can liken, if you are looking for examples from Ghana, we can liken Blue Skies Holdings as an example of an international firm. Blue Skies Holdings. I'm not sure if any of you have patronized some of their packaged fruits before. Blue Skies Holdings. So it is a company along the in
Sir, please, I
Sawam.
know this guy.
So what are they into?
So they are into natural fruits drinks.
Okay, supposedly the drinks and the fruits that they pack are all organic or natural. So
Natural, yes, sir.
typically they don't add any preservatives or additives. If it is mango, they squeeze it, or sometimes they even chop it into 9 shapes and then put them in a bowl, and then they send these packed fruits to various outlets for it to be sold. And they are along the Nsawam Adwajiri stretch. If you are going to Nsawam or you are coming to Accra, so they can be construed as an international firm based on a number of. Hello, Frimpong. Hello, Frimpong. Are you trying to ask a question or you are making a contribution?
Sir, please, Accra here.
They have some in Takoradi.
So I was saying that yes.
So you are saying that they have some, they have some in Takoradi here.
Hey, sir, then that is news to me. So do you mean they sell
Yes,
some or they
do
have their one of their operating centers in Takoradi?
Yes, sir.
For that one, I can't confirm, but then.
Or is it
every
that
day the car comes to drop them at Poly?
Okay. Okay. Is it so?
They have a
Is it?
distribution van that distribute them.
Okay. So they bring some of their products to Takoradi. All right, I get you now.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
All right. But to the best of my knowledge, when it comes to their production and the packaging of the fruits, much of the activities is centered around that Nsawam Adwajiri Strait because of the proximity of their factory to the areas where the fruits are coming from. So around that area, they are able to get a lot of pineapple, mangoes, oranges, tangerine, and all the other fruits that people may want them to be packed in a fresh manner for consumption. Okay, so Blue Skies may qualify as an international firm. Now, let's look at some of the considerations or characteristics of Blue Sky, which is prompting me to say they constitute an international firm. So I indicated that if you look at the revenue generation of the firm, typically about 10 to 20% of it may be coming from areas outside their country of origin. And beyond that, their operation activities is also traced to an additional context or country. As I speak with you, beyond Ghana, the fruits that are packed by Blue Skies, individuals that are currently in UK, at least in the United Kingdom, they are able to access it within 24 hours once it is packed in Ghana. So what they do is that they have a well thought through supply chain or distribution channel wherein right from the factory where it is packed, it is shipped by your friend is KLM or British Airways to the United Kingdom. And the various shops or outlets such as Sainsbury, Tesco, where they sell some of their fruits, are also on standby to pick them and put them on their shelves. When you pack mangoes no anaasɛ pineapple no enyumre wɔ ha sɛ ya flight KLM flight na ɛbɛkɔ UK ɛkyɛnana ɛde of course they also have other flights that deal with only for distribution and supply chain purposes. So that flight will also be on standby to transport it to the various outlets where it will be needed. And once it hits UK, the next morning you will find some of their products on shelves. So that it doesn't go by, and those that want it fresh and juicy will now access it for their own consumption. So along that line, you can construe Blue Skies also fitting the international firm as far as their path to internationalization is concerned. Now, in terms of their geographical scope, I'm still on Blue Skies. In terms of their geographical scope, you realize that their international operation beyond Ghana is focused in a specific country, so United Kingdom. Well, I'm not sure as I speak with you if they are now plying their trade along the European sub-region, but to the best of my knowledge, and based on my own checks and experience, they are flourishing in United Kingdom. So what will be the implication of being an international firm? What is the implication for HR practitioners? Or how is it relevant to international HR? One of the HR implications is that firms that are currently occupying the international stage, including Blue Skies, will need few international specialists or expatriates to be handling their international trading. So Blue Skies, for instance, will have to employ a mix of local nationals, local talents, and few international specialists to manage its export operations and also ensure quality standards are met for the international markets. So they cannot decide that, oh, we are only going to take Ghanaians there to go and handle our distribution channels therein in the United Kingdom. The road networks in Ghana is totally different from that of United Kingdom. So that alone can be an obstacle for a Ghanaian who is fresh in that environment to help their commerce excel. In the same vein, they will need people that understand the regulations that guide the conduct of commerce in United Kingdom for such people to spearhead the operations of Blue Sky. So definitely they will have to, in fact, they are currently having a few international specialists in specific areas, as well as some local nationals that are being characterized as expatriates over there to be helping them in their exports and operation activities there. Because they are now dealing with locals and foreign nationals, that is Ghanaians and people from United Kingdom, it will also be important for them to develop at least a basic cross-cultural training program. So that is another implication that firms that are operating at the international level must adhere to. They need to develop a basic cross-cultural training program. And this is important because such a program will help the employees understand their cultural expectations and the standards that they have to adhere to as far as their international customers are concerned. So, unlike in Ghana, where it will be okay for one to sell some of these fruits by putting them in those transparent rubbers. Oh, the good rubber be near they say be black mona or they should be not baby. That may be treated as bad customer service when you do that to maybe someone from United Kingdom. So they may want this packed in a more attractive and convenient manner. Okay, so all these things, if your eyes will be open to it, you have to go through some form of cross-cultural orientation and education to become privy to the do's and don'ts over there. So another implication for international HRM when firms decide to go international is that because there is always going to be the assignment of people, there is always going to be international assignments. People will be going on international assignment to serve in other jurisdictions. It is important for arrangement to be made whether the firm will be sending individuals to go and fill key positions over there. But of course, that will be contingent on the international orientation of the firm. So if the firm is oriented by the ethnocentric orientation, then definitely key positions in United Kingdom will be filled by Ghanaians. But if the firm is going by the polycentric, then they may decide to leave key positions for British candidates that understand the terrain very well. So essentially, there will be introduction of international assignments and corresponding support system, but that should be well thought through and handled depending on the international orientation. Blue Skies, for instance, definitely will have to support its international assignments for key staff members who manage their export operations and also maintain relationship with their international clients. They must have some support system available there to handle those engagements. All right, so that is an international firm. And these are the implications that I was talking about. Now, if the firm expands its operation beyond the domestic environment and the additional country where it was hitherto operating, then it metaphors into a stage that we call multinational firm. So typically speaking, a multinational firm or a multi-country firm or a multi-domestic firm is the stage in the internationalization wherein the firm in question plies its trade in multiple countries, in addition to the country where their headquarters is located. So in many industries, the next step in the evolution of international business is for the firm to establish copies of their home offices and operations in relatively self-standing foreign subsidiaries. So that is what I mean by they will set up a replica of their operations in other countries. And here we are talking about multiple countries. So it's not like Ghana, between Ghana and Nigeria. So if you take Kasapreko, then we expect Kasapreko to have operations in Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Togo, South Africa, and what have you. the initial orientation of multinational enterprises is that there are international assignees from the Home Office who may be relocated internationally to transfer the firm's technology, mode of operation, and set up the new operation and manage that subsidiary at the earlier stages of the evolution. So a typical example of a multinational firm or a multi-country, and I say a multi-domestic firm that we can all think of and relate with is Fanmilk Ghana Limited. Fanmilk Limited. So Fanmilk Limited. Originally, in fact, my little research suggests that Fanmilk, as a company we have now, started its operation somewhere in the 1960s. 1960. And it was some Danish entrepreneur that found that we had a lot of milk in abundance in Ghana, but our way of processing and selling it was one way. Plus, in their cultural context, they were using it to do cheese, ice cream, and what have you. Our style of consuming milk in Ghana was one way. And so he saw it as an opportunity to add value to it, to see whether it may fly in Ghana. And so that gave birth to Fanmilk, Fanmilk Limited. If you look at the characteristics of Fanmilk, which makes it a multi-country or a multi-domestic, and as a multinational firm, we are all aware that Fanmilk Limited has it has expanded its operations beyond Ghana by establishing subsidiaries in several West African countries, including Nigeria. So Nigeria says here, you can still get access to Fanmilk. If you go to Togo, you get access to it. If you go to Ivory Coast, Benin, even Burkina Faso, you can get access to Fanmilk. And their operations over there is based on subsidiaries that have been created over there. It's not like it is being produced in Ghana and then it is being transported or exported to those places, but rather they have stand-alone, or if you like, autonomous subsidiaries that are also operating the trade of Fanmilk over there. If you also look at the operational style of Fanmilk Ghana Limited and you compare it to that of its subsidiaries, you realize that each subsidiary operates relatively independent. So those of you that have traveled to Nigeria, in my last class, one of the students commented that if you compare the size of Fanmilk we have in Ghana to that of the Nigerians and our neighboring country, it looks like theirs is quite bigger. Yeah, in terms of the size, theirs is quite bigger. So the decision to make those ones big and ours small is contingent on the unique peculiarities that each subsidiary is facing. Again, if you, they are also said to be relatively independent because if you look at the varieties of Fanmilk products we have in Ghana,
Sir, it's true.
And it was so many.
That is true. It's true. Nigerians' own is bigger than Ghanaians' own. I've been there before, so it's
Oh, okay.
true.
Okay. Nti no akyerɛkyerɛ mu deɛ ɔkɔpɛ wɔ hɔ.
Okay, sir. No, sir.
Now, beyond the size, even the variety. So when I say the variety, in Ghana here, we have the strawberry one, we have the vanilla, we have the multi-fruit one, the one that's sort of have mango and all that. Then I think there is cocoa purples, a baby, and sana chocolate. Is that not the case?
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. But when you go to
Yes,
our
sir.
neighboring countries, it is possible that you may not even have that cocoa pop variety there. You may not even have the multi-fruit one, say banana or say mango one. You may not get them over there because the tastes of Ghanaians there may be a ready market for those varieties in Ghana, but it may not be available in other countries where their subsidiaries are operating. So along that line, you can say Farmwork Limited is a multinational or a multi-country or a multi-domestic firm. Now, another
And sir,
reason why,
sir,
yeah, go on,
sir,
Patricia.
please, the shape too. The shape. We have triangular shape too in Nigeria, but for Ghana here, we don't have that shape here.
Is it the one in
Nigeria today
rubber or you are talking about the one in
in the
the
park.
bowls? Oh,
No,
okay.
the one in the rubber. Nigerians people have some in the park, a
Okay.
paper one in
I see.
triangular shapes. But yeah, we don't have some.
In
Here
Ghana.
on is only the rubber and the containers.
Okay.
But for that
Alright.
shape there, they don't have some here in Ghana.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good. So that means the philosophy behind the shaping of the farmer products may have some cultural explanation. For all you know, I don't say Ghana has say Moana Mudi Abele was no. There is a way the rubbers are designed, and so when you put it in it and you put it in the freezer, it creates a unique shape, be as a cone form shape. It may be something that is more Ghanaian than maybe Nigeria or Ivory Coast. And I'm suspecting that that may also be the reason why they have designed the triangular shapes for their Nigerian counterparts or their Nigerian subsidiaries. So that even emphasized the point I was going to make, that Farmwork as a company can be construed as an international firm because of their local responsiveness, their ability to prioritize on local responsiveness. So when we say local responsiveness becomes a priority, what that simply means is that the firm in question, that is Farmwork, ensures that its products and services are tailored to meet the specific demands and cultural preferences of each market. So if you come to Ghana and we may want you to put them in this Abelewos rubber sort of, then you have to do it for it because that is what we construe as a delicacy in Ghana. But that may not be the norm in Nigeria or wherever else. So the moment you are tilted towards churning out goods and services that actually meets the local priorities, then you say you are being responsive to local priorities. And that is an indication of being multi-country, because every country that you go in there, because we have the autonomy to operate independently, your subsidiaries thereafter, you are expected to do and go all out in order to satisfy the needs and preferences of your customers there. So that is a multi-country or multinational and multi-domestic, which means that if you use multinational firm to describe a firm that is not suitable for it, it will be like putting the cart before the horse. So please know the differences and know when to use these terminologies. if your colleagues that are doing other courses are not able to distinguish it, and so they call all of them international firms, take your time to explain to them that no, there are distinct milestones and features that characterize each of these firms, and then you break it down for them. Now, so I think did I mention the HR implications? So it also has HR implications. When we say a firm is operating in a multi-country or as a multinational firm, this one, the HR implication becomes much more complex and convoluted because you are not dealing with only 2 countries in question, but you are dealing with multiple countries. Okay. So, for instance, when it comes to recruitment and selection, let's take recruitment and selection. Farm milk may typically recruit local managers in each of their subsidiaries to ensure effective leadership and understanding of the local markets. What I'm trying to say over here is that there is the likelihood for recruitment of local managers to lead foreign subsidiaries. That is one of the implications of multi-country, because you can't decide to be recruiting from Ghana to all the various countries where you have subsidiaries plying your trade there. If you do that, it may not flourish because your Ghanaian managers may not understand the intricacies of those business environments, and they may struggle to succeed over there. And whenever there is a confusion from managerial level to the followers, the likelihood that the subsidiary will collapse in no time is high. So one of the implications is that when it comes to the filling of key positions, the likelihood for opportunity to be granted to the local nationals at the various countries where the subsidiaries are found is high. Another implication of this multinational operation is that there is enhanced cross-cultural training and development programs. So it is very much important for cross-cultural training and development interventions to take a center stage, because you are dealing with individuals that originate from multiple countries filled with varied cultural expectations and perceptions. So if you don't manage their cultural anticipations very well, there will be clash of cultures, and that can even breed conflict. So as much as possible, cross-cultural training and development programs becomes a center stage. So any training program that you are going to roll out, it must have a cross-cultural undertone. Such programs should be designed to accommodate individuals that originate from different countries. It should not be designed to address the needs of only your European counterparts or only your African counterparts, but it should be all-embracing. The example that will be cited during the training program should be something that, irrespective of your cultural background, you will be inclined to relate to and appreciate. Another implication is that there is also the creation of an expatriate management programs with a focus on localization. Expatriate management program with a focus on localization. What does this mean? It simply means that the company in question definitely is going to have international assignees or expatriates. So as much as possible, they also have to put in place an expatriate management program in place to see to it that there will be transfer of knowledge and skills. So transfer of knowledge and skills between their expatriates and those counterparts that will be found in other countries. And this transfer of knowledge and skills should also emphasize on developing local talents to take over leadership roles. What this means is that if, for instance, Farmo Ghana Limited sends one of their technicians from Ghana to go and help their Nigerian counterparts raise the standard to the level that the headquarters wants it to be. Definitely, there is supposed to be an arrangement made for the transfer of knowledge to occur, wherein by the time the Ghanaian returns back to Ghana, the technician returns back to Ghana, he is not supposed to return with his know-how. Rather, he is expected to impart knowledge in someone in the subsidiary country so that such a person can also replicate their knowledge within the length and breadth of their subsidiary. So that is what we mean by creating of an expatriate management program. And this expatriate management program is also expected to help the expatriates transition smoothly without any challenges. Most often than not, expatriates fail on their international assignments, not because they are bad candidates for the assignment, but because the necessary preparatory arrangements were not put in place. So they are taken by a surprise when they get to the foreign land, and the time that they must have utilized to concentrate on their job will be utilized in handling other trivial issues which might have been corrected earlier on when this expatriate management program was in place. For instance, language barrier. When you get to the market, how can you interact with them? Besides language barrier, what are some of the cultural do's and don'ts that one must adhere to, so that going contrary to it, you may attract penalties from your counterparts? If you are oriented towards some of these things through the expatriate management program, then you'll be inclined to flourish when you go on the assignment. So at the multinational level, multi-country level, one of the key implications of the international HR manager is to create an expatriate management program that will cater for some of these gray areas. All right. Now, the next level or the next stage in the process of internationalization is what we call a regional firm. And Bartlett and Goshal also characterize it as regionalization. In the strict sense of it, a multinational firm is not so much different from a regional firm, except to say that the trade and the trade and activities or operations of a regional firm is clustered within a geographical area that has a lot of commonalities in terms of their cultural background. So this may mean that the multinational firm may be operating in multiple countries, all right, but these countries may be clustered within West Africa. It is also possible that these countries may be clustered only in the African continent. It is also possible that these countries may be clustered in the Asian or the American region. If that is the sort of firm we are dealing with, then we can conveniently say that the characteristics of the firm suggest that it is a regional firm, and the process is called regionalization. So as an alternative to the multi-domestic strategy, a firm may decide initially to conduct its international business on a regional basis. And when I say regional basis, that is what I indicated earlier on by saying that they may decide to cluster their operations within West Africa or within the the African continent or maybe the Asian continent. This approach initially involved first organizing to conduct business in one or two regions. So it may be the European region, the Latin American region, or the Asian region. The HRM impacts here are similar to those of the previous strategy, that is the multi-domestic or a multinational. Although they will be managed from the regional headquarters. So what happens is that the multinational enterprise may decide to locate its headquarters as one of the countries where the regions are found. And then the authority to operate and the directions and HR policies directions will all be coming from the headquarters. So a Ghanaian firm that can be likened to operating at the regional level. I'm not sure if, I hope you are all familiar with Data Bank Group. Have you heard it before? Data Bank Group. Hello, can you all hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Someone is Data Bank.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
Data Bank, as it operates now, can be construed as a regional firm. Now, what are some of its characterizations that is making me conclude that they constitute a regional firm? The reason why it is characterized as a regional firm, but not a multinational or a multi-country firm, is that it has a regional focus. So typically, Data Bank Group has expanded its investment and financial services across the West African region. So if you go to a country like Nigeria, they also plight their investment and financial services over there. If you go to Sierra Leone, if you go to Liberia, they have some of their financial investments services extended to those regions. So because they are applying their trade within the West African sub-region, we can construe it as what? A regional firm. And one can also say that the regional focus of Data Bank has enabled it capitalize or seized on the economic growth and investment opportunities within those West African regions. Okay. And beyond the its expansion to these West African countries, we can also deduce that all the countries where Data Bank is operating have some common regional characteristics. So if you go to Sierra Leone, Liberia, and all those places that I mentioned, Data Bank operates on the assumption that West African countries share certain economic characteristics and investment climates. And these characteristics and investment climates can be leveraged to create a cohesive financial products and services that will be highly sought after by West African countries. And that is exactly what they are doing. Now, obviously, they have their regional headquarters in Ghana, and the Ghanaian headquarters seeks to ensure that there is centralized coordination and strategic alignment across all the regions where they have in West Africa. And these have huge implications for HRM, International Human Resource Management. So what are some of the implications? When it comes to recruitment and selection, Data Bank emphasizes regional recruitment and selection. What do I mean by this? Data Bank emphasizes hiring local talent within the West African region, ensuring that its workforce is knowledgeable about the local financial market and regulatory environment. So, if you look at the hiring strategy of Data Bank, and if you go through their board of directors and people that hold key positions in Ghana, Nigeria, and across the other West African countries where they have their operations, you realize all of them are originating from West Africa. And the assumption there is that because they originate from West Africa and they have a lot of experience working within the West African region, they will have an upper hand in the knowledge of the financial markets in West Africa. In terms of the HR policies that is being used by firms that operate on regional basis, we also say that they experience an adaptation of HR policies. So what this means is that the firms will have to adapt its HR policies to comply with the diverse regulatory requirements of each country while maintaining overarching policies that support the regional strategy. So what this seeks to communicate is that whereas the headquarters in Ghana may be dictating certain HR policies and programs, if you look at the labor law of Nigeria or of Sierra Leone, it may require further modifications. So which implies that after picking the HR policy programs from Ghana, there is the need for their HR managers across the various West African sub-regions to modify them to comply with the legal arrangements and labor laws that regulates employee relationships in those countries. Still on the implications, regional firms usually embark on cross-cultural training programs, just as it is done by multinational firms or multi-country firms. So Data Bank typically offers cross-cultural training programs to equip its employees with the skills needed to navigate and manage cultural differences within the West African region. And this will go a long way to promote effective teamwork and improve customer relationships. So that is it about Data Bank as an example of a regional firm as far as internationalization of firms is concerned. Now, the fourth one, just give me a minute. I'll be with you soon, okay? A minute. Okay, I am back. So let's continue. The fourth stage in the internationalization of a firm can be characterized as a global firm. So what do we mean when we say a particular firm has evolved or metamorphosed to become a global firm? In recent years, many multinational enterprises have reached a stage in their internationalization where their operations are becoming blind to national borders. And even though most businesses still organize on a regional basis and adaptation to local customer preferences may still be necessary, products and services are increasingly becoming designed for and marketed to customers all over the world. So when we say a firm is raised the global stage, it simply means that the operations of the firm can be found globally. If you go to any part of the world, you will, and you want to patronize the services of such a firm, you can still find their presence and their dominance over there. Now, this is particularly true for industrial products. So for products sold from businesses to businesses or products such as production of computer chips or office supplies. And it is also true for many service-oriented firms, such as those in the banking industry, retail industry, insurance, and thereafter. And the best technology innovative ideas are usually sought by these firms because it will help them to apply their trade everywhere, and they can also apply such innovations to markets throughout the world. Now, global firms are set to produce goods and services that are created everywhere, costs are at lowest. So one of the prime reasons why a particular firm may decide to push some of its operations to, let's say, China or India, may be on economies of scale and cost reasons. If you do the cost analysis, you will realize they can always make supernormal profit when they produce over there and then distribute it to all other parts of the world. So all this plenty English. The bottom line is that a firm is said to be at a global stage or operating as a global firm when the operations and activities of the firm, the goods and services that is being churned out by the firm, is to satisfy customers all over the world, but not customers confined to a particular region or obscure countries. So based on these characterizations, a company that comes to mind easily is Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola bottling company is a company that can be construed to be a global firm. And this is so because Coca-Cola has a global presence. In fact, Coca-Cola operates in more than 200 countries worldwide. And this makes it one of the most globally recognized brands. In fact, I am yet to find a part of the world where Coca-Cola is unknown. Everywhere you go, irrespective of how remote the place may be, you will have the presence of Coca-Cola beverages being patronized over there. Another characterization of Coca-Cola that makes it a global firm is that they embrace centralized decision-making. What do we mean by they embracing centralized decision-making? So typically, while operating in multiple countries, Coca-Cola is said to maintain a centralized management structure with key decisions being made at the corporate headquarters in USA to ensure consistency and alignment with its global strategy. So on that basis, we can say that the parent company, which is in the US, still dictates the direction and the agenda of all the subsidiaries that are operating for the parent company. Another reason why Coca-Cola can be construed to be a global firm is that Typically, global firms churn out goods and services that are standardized, so mass production. Now, let's look at the offers from Coca-Cola. In fact, they offer standardized products such as Coca-Cola, Sprite, Fanta. And everywhere you go, the taste of Coke or Sprite or Fanta will be the same. So the various varieties of Coke, whether it is the sugar-free one, I'm going to say it's a black Coke, everywhere you go is the same. Okay, so there is standardization. Now, beyond the characterization, what are some of the implications for international HRM? Just as the multinational firms, global firms also have centralized HR management systems. So HR policies and practices are managed centrally to ensure consistency across all Coca-Cola operations. And this will include recruitment processes, performance management systems, employee training and development programs. All these activities are managed from a centralized HR management system. There is also the notion of global firms having a global talent pool. So what this means is that, for instance, Coca-Cola focuses on developing a global talent pool, allowing employees to work in various locations within the company. So once you have what it takes, and you are considered to be a talented person who can contribute to the Coca-Cola's success story or the global firm success story, they are inclined to give you the opportunity to come and work for them. And this facilitates the sharing of best practices and expertise across the global operations of these global firms. Another international HRM implication is the emphasis on diversity and inclusion. Diversity and inclusion. So these global firms place a strong emphasis on diversity and inclusion. In fact, as I speak with you, if you go to the website of Coca-Cola, you will find one of their either mission or vision statements capturing diversity and inclusion. And the reason why they catch out some of these clauses in their mission statements or their vision statement is that they want to come across as a firm that embraces varied cultures, a firm that is poised to learn from other cultural spheres. And once you have such an orientation, everyone will be inclined to associate with your brand, as opposed to a firm that is more ethnocentric. Now, beyond the emplacement of a diversity and inclusion strategy or focus, global firms also are set to have global mobility programs. So because global firms at one point or the other will be having some of its employees going on international assignments, it is always important to have a cadre of workforce available that can be called upon at any point in time to go on some of these international assignments. So Coca-Cola, for instance, has global mobility programs that enable its employees to take on assignments in different countries, which promotes the exchange of knowledge and skills across the global landscape. So that is it as far as global firms are concerned. Now, beyond Coca-Cola, who can also tell me a global firm that comes to mind based on the characteristics that I have just given? Who can tell me what? Hey,
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Frimpong.
Please, sir, can you go over the question again?
I'm asking, besides Coca-Cola, can you also tell me any other firm that can qualify to be called as a global firm? Besides Coca-Cola, can you think of any firm that can be characterized as a global firm based on the standardization of their operational processes?
Sir,
Frimpong,
Hollandia yogurt.
you said what?
I said Hollandia yogurt.
You said what?
I said Hollandia yogurt.
Hollandia what?
Yogurt.
Yogurt. Oh, okay. So, can you describe their operational? Do they have standardization in their operations and their goods and services? I presume they are into the manufacturing of yogurt.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Well, I am not so much privy to their operations, so unless you are inclined to tell me, I may not be able to relate to it well. But there are common ones that you can talk about. So besides Hollandia yogurt, what comes to mind? There are common ones.
Sir,
Oh, someone said something, but I couldn't hear. Can the person repeat again?
Pepsi.
Pepsi. Okay, Pepsi. So, Pepsi is actually a key competitor to Coca-Cola. So you are correct. All the things that I said about Coca-Cola, the same can be said about Pepsi as well. In fact, at some point in time in Ghana, Coca-Cola wanted to buy all the operations of Pepsi. I'm not sure if it actually went through and that the operations of Pepsi in Ghana is owned by Coca-Cola. But at one point in time, they wanted to saturate the Ghanaian market, and so they were trying to cut out Pepsi out of the Ghanaian market. All right, so let's go to the automobile industry. What company can you think of? The automobile industry. Okay, so this may be fresh. You keep on thinking about it. Later on, I'll package it for you to address. Now, let's go to the last one, which is a transnational firm.
Hello, sir.
Yes, hello.
Sir, the automobile industry, like, I want to know a sample of what it means.
You
if
want
I
to
can
know an example?
Get any example?
Come again. You wanted to find
like the sample. Hello, sir.
Can you repeat what you just said? I'm struggling to hear you well.
Yes, sir. So I was asking the automobile, like, what is it about? Like, what do they do? I want to know.
Okay. You can automobile, like companies that manufacture cars. So if you take the company that manufacture cars, man, which of them can you characterize as being a global firm? That is the question I was asking. Is the companies not make cars and they move their hand out to the Toyota. Toyota, very good. So Toyota has its headquarters in Japan, and they have their subsidiaries. In fact, Ghana, they now assemble Toyota cars here. They assemble some in South Africa. In fact, they have their footprints dotted across the entire globe of the earth. So Toyota will also qualify to be a global firm. Beyond Toyota, what firm again? Okay, what the transnational? Actually, my package in a kama mama. Now, transnational firm. So, according to Bartlett and Gusa, the operations of some global firms now is beyond the initial characterization that they laid out, in the sense that such firms are drifting away from the agenda of global firms, wherein goods and services are standardized. So they are having global presence, all right. These transnational firms have global presence, all right. Except that everywhere they go, their goods and services are varied to meet the changing needs of their unique markets. What this means is that a typical transnational firm may churn out goods and services in Ghana, but different goods and services of the same firm will be found when you go to India or China, simply because the Chinese or the Indian market is quite unique, and the demands of the customers in that jurisdiction may be different from what the Ghanaians are also asking for. For that reason, they drift away from this mass production or standardization in their production trajectory, but rather to produce goods and services that satisfy the local needs and preferences. But this is not to say that they are going to compromise on the standard that has been set in terms of the quality of their goods and services. So transnational firms are essentially said to be firms that focus simultaneously on global integration and local responsiveness. In other words, such firms act globally, but they think locally. Now, let me go ahead and give you some of their characteristics. So, compared to global firms, transnational firms also have global presence. And every part of the world that you go to, you can patronize their goods and services. So a typical example of a transnational firm is Nestle. Nestle. Said Nestle there, all of you have heard it before. Nestle. Is that not the case? Haven't you heard Nestle before? Hey, you people are in there.
Please, we've heard some.
So what are some of their products?
Sir, we heard about Nestle.
What are some of their products?
Sir, Milo.
Okay.
Ideal Milk. They have Milo,
right.
Ideal Milk, Cerelac.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
So that means they have a global presence. And essentially, when you say they have a global presence, it means that they operate in nearly every country in the world. Now, another point that you can use to characterize and differentiate a transnational firm from a global firm is that they also have local adaptation agenda. So typically, Nestle adapts its products to suit the local tastes and preferences, whilst also maintaining a global brand and quality standard. Inti, oko baby to say, UK. Let's take their evaporated milk, for instance. In Ghana and in most of the African countries, when it comes to the milk that is being produced by Nestle, it is most often than not the evaporated ones, the ones that we find in their cans and also in their sachet. But if you go to Europe and America, they have other brands of milk that may come across as fresh. In fact, the first time, I entered a supermarket in one of these European countries and I purchased their milk and I tasted it. I nearly vomited because the variety of milk that they also have over there, in fact, the majority of the milk products they have over there is very, very light and watery. It's more or less like skimmed milk or not fresh milk this time. So if you are the one that is a typical Ghanaian like me who has the evaporated milk and the concentrated one as a delicacy, then you will not find their light and watery milks that they have over there as something that you appreciate. But mind you, in the cultural context of these Americans and Europeans, they also have a delicacy for those fresh milks, and I said the light milks. And some of these milks even come in paper forms. So, you say, oh, milk with the thermopan or a dozen. I said, too light. Be the guma, or cereals, or we cry it will still not taste like the Ghanaian one that you are used to. So that is what I mean by they adhere to local adaptation. And by so doing, these transnational firms tend to adapt their products and services to suit local tastes and preferences. Now, they also have integrated operations. And what I mean by integrated operations is that such companies are said to have highly integrated supply chain and manufacturing network that allow its produce and distribution of their products in a global landscape. So what this means is that a particular subsidiary may decide to specialize in producing an aspect or a specific product for the transnational firm. But once it is done, all other parts of the world where such products will be desired, it can be easily distributed and made available to them. So that is why we say they have an integrated and coordinated operational system. Now, the part that is of interest to us is the HR implications. So the first HR implication for transnational firms is that they also have a global talent management. So if you paid attention, right from multinational through global to transnational, they all have global talent management system. And Nestle, for instance, has a global talent management strategy with a focus on developing a diverse and skilled workforce that can operate in different markets. So if you are identifying talents and you are also preparing them for your firm, you must have the entire world in view. You must have the entire world in view. And once you have this at the bottom of your operation, then you'll be inclined to also prepare them to flourish at every subsidiary that you take them to. Now, beyond the global talent management focus, another HR implication is that they also center on cross-cultural training. So cross-cultural training also take a center stage in these transnational firms. Now, this means that these transnational firms provide cross-cultural training to its employees to help them work effectively in diverse teams and markets. So the anticipation is that at one point in time, you are either going to work with peers or co-workers that may be originating from a different cultural context. You are also likely to be serving customers that originate from different cultural contexts. So this cross-cultural training will sensitize you on some of the things that can be leveraged to become a strength for your company, and how you can overcome your weaknesses and position yourself as a firm that can address and attend to their changing needs. Beside Nestle, another firm that I can also think of as being a transnational firm is Unilever. Unilever. So Unilever, as I speak with you, has its operations in over 190 countries. In fact, if you Google it, you may have a much more updated version. But from my readings, they have at least 190 countries wherein they are operating. And they are operating with a wide range of consumer goods. But
Hello, sir.
yeah, hello.
The Unilever, are they still working in Ghana?
Come again.
I wanted to find out if they are still operating in Ghana.
Well, I can't confirm if they still have their presence in Ghana. I also heard some rumors some time back that they were folding a but we are talking about their global dominance. So if, for instance, if they are not operating in Ghana, it does not suffice to say that they are not a transnational firm. If a particular firm is operating in more than 190 countries and beyond their operations in these countries, they vary their goods and services to address the tastes and preferences or the needs of their local constituents across these subsidiaries, then they qualify to be called a transnational firm, as opposed to a situation where the firm will be producing standardized goods and services without any variation to meet the needs and peculiar taste preferences of their customers. So the focus is on their ability to have global presence and their ability to also meet local needs and preferences. So Nestle has a global presence because at least they have operations in more than 190 countries. And again, they are also perceived to have the characteristics of what we call local responsiveness. Hey, what did I say Nestle? I mean Unilever. So Unilever is said to have local responsiveness traits in the sense that Unilever has adapted its products and marketing strategies to suit local preferences and cultural norms. So some of the products that we may be having in the African sub-region may be different from the ones that the Europeans may be having, simply because the products that thrive in the African sub-region may not thrive in the European or the Asian sub-region. So that is the angle I want you to focus on as far as transnational firms are concerned. But more importantly, what are the implications of being a transnational firm to the practice of human resource management, particularly international HRM? So just as we did in global firms and we also did in multinational firms, transnational firms are said to also have a global talent development pool. They also have a global talent development pool from which they can focus on developing global leaders and managers who can work effectively in different markets or countries. Another implication is that the HR has to erect a position on diversity and inclusion. So typically, these transnational firms also emphasize on creating a diversity and inclusive environment for its workforce, which will reflect the diverse markets wherein they will be operating. In fact, it will be out of the norm if you realize a particular transnational firm is having its workforce originating from a single country. It will be very difficult to flourish in that regard. You can't have all your workforce originating from a single country, but occupying more than all the positions in your more than 100 countries. It will be out of place. So there should be diversity and inclusion. All right. Any question as far as the transitioning of firms from domestic to transnational is concerned? Any question?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yes, Frimpong, I'm listening.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Frimpong.
Yeah, so my question is how what we learn about it.
Hey, Frimpong, I am struggling to hear you. I don't know if it is only me or your colleagues can hear you well. Yeah, you get closer to your microphone, then you'll be able to communicate clearly, okay?
Sir, please, we
Oh,
can't hear.
And me too, I can't hear him. So Frimpong, get
Is it
close to your
okay now?
microphone. Yeah, it's better.
Oh, okay, sir. So I wanted to ask, we being an HR student and you also being an HR lecturer, I want to ask you what will be the contributing factor in terms of the HR field as to why all these companies who were working in Ghana have all of a sudden decided to put a stop to their operation in Ghana?
Okay, so that is a good question, but the fold up of companies in a particular country is caused by a number of factors. Most of which may not even bother on how the HR department is managing the human resources in there. For instance, if the business environment where the company is working in is not bringing forth their projected revenues and they are incurring lots of losses, then any profit-minded organization will not continue to be in operation, because at that stage, it will mean that you will be taking your profit and revenue from other contexts to come and pushing your dwindling activities in another country. So that can be one factor. Another factor is also the economic arrangement or the economic environment that these firms find themselves in. Now, if the economic arrangement is such that it is very much volatile, wherein the money that you make today, if you do the conversion to dollars, it will become peanuts, and it will not make any strategic sense to keep on operating under such circumstances, then definitely they will all be inclined to be leaving. The third reason is that if they do their comparative analysis, usually when firms do comparative analysis and they realize that they are better off concentrating all their efforts in a particular country rather than spreading it, then they are likely to be inclined to also leave. So the likelihood for some of these multinational enterprises to be leaving Ghana is not only contingent on something that the HR department is doing right or not. In fact, in my experience, when such people are leaving, they take along their best and hardworking performing employees to the neighboring countries or the different subsidiaries where they are going to concentrate their efforts and treat such people over there as expatriates. I don't know if your question is answered.
Sure, it is, sir.
But my admonishment to you people is that in as much as you should be interested in why some of these people, some of these companies may be flourishing or not, try and analyze it. Hello, can you hear me?
No,
Hello?
sir, your line was breaking.
Line was
Is
breaking.
it better now?
Yeah, it is.
So, in your analysis of the stages, you will realize our focus is on the firms succeeding at one stage and then progressing to another stage until eventually they may get to the transnational stage. That is our analogy and our focus. It is possible that in the progression of a particular firm, they may become stagnant at the international stage. Others may become stagnant at the domestic stage. So as you read along, I am admonishing you to focus on the peculiar HR implications that you can derive for each of the stages. And this is important because whereas certain HR policies and practices may flourish at the transnational or at the global level, it may be out of place when they introduce them at the international level. So as you read along, and after this class, I'll make the video available to you. Please pay salient attention to the implications for the practice of international HR. Those are the ones that we are concerned about. Any other question? Hello, Marilyn. Marilyn. Is Marilyn present or absent?
Hello, sir, I'm here.
Are you trying to ask a question? Because I saw your microphone on mute.
Oh, so I switched to my laptop, so I forgot to unmute it.
All right. So I thought you were trying to ask a question. But
No,
does
please.
any other have a question for me? This is one of the areas that examiners like bringing questions on. So please, when you go and digest it before they start fleeting away from your brain. And as I indicated, when you are reading, pay attention to the international, the implications for IHR. So far, we have looked at the various stages that domestic firms go through to evolve and enter into the international business landscape. But the question is, what are the penetration strategies that they can utilize to enter into this international business? Research suggests that just as firms are admonished not to haphazardly enter into the international business markets, they are equally advised to choose the right entry or penetration strategy in order not to crash head on. So what are some of these methods that can be used by domestic firms to enter into the international business? These options include licensing and subcontracting, outsourcing, offshoring, developing a whole owned subsidiary, mergers and acquisition, joint venturing. So we are going to take them in turns. The first penetration strategy that are available to domestic firms that aspire to go into international business is what we call licensing or subcontracting. So licensing and subcontracting is considered to be one of the earliest approaches that one can utilize to embark on international business. So when we say licensing or subcontracting, it generally means that a particular manufacturer or organization in question will issue out a contract or license to another firm in another country to assemble or manufacture its products, usually with an intention of exporting it back to their home country. And the primary reason why firms may decide to go international through the route of licensing or subcontracting is to take advantage of lower costs of production in these foreign markets. So if you typically look at the cost that will be involved in producing the goods and services, it tends to be relatively cheaper in these new foreign markets that they are talking about. And so why wouldn't you decide to capitalize on the cheaper labor over there? Another reason why individuals may decide to embark on licensing subcontracting as a route to enter into the international business market is that they may want to take advantage of their being closer to the source of raw material. So proximity to the source of raw material. And we all know that if their proximity to source of raw material is high, the transportational costs and supply chain route will also be reduced, and that can help escalate your profit motives. Now, so a special form of licensing is also what we call the franchising, wherein the franchisee buys into the brand and business model of the franchisor in return for operational and marketing expertise. And some of the IHRM activities in the area here focuses on assisting in licensing and drafting the contracting from the manufacturing company. And it also ensures that human rights of the workforce that will be working for the franchisee is not compromised because of the need to adhere to the required labor law and ISO standardization. They are also equally interested in making sure that the standard that has been put forth by the franchisor is not compromised by the franchisee. Now, a quick one. When I was explaining the licensing, I think I left out some components. So as I indicated, when we say you are using licensing as an entry strategy for an international business, it simply means that an arrangement is made in which a company, so the company that is construed to be the parent company is called the licensor. So if you write license, then you bring OR. So the licensor grants another company the license. The one that receives the license becomes the licensee. Just as we have franchisor and franchisee. The one issuing the license is called licensor, and the one receiving the license to operate in another jurisdiction is called licensee. So once this licensee receives the right to use the intellectual property, and this intellectual property may be the patent or trademark or know-how, they are also expected to pay a fee or what we call royalty from time to time. But the licensor or the company that issued the license remains the owner of the intellectual property. So the licensee is more or less like benefiting out of the intellectual property of the licensor. They are they've seen that the licensor has a particular brand that they can identify with, and they want to profit from the brand's name, even though they may have their own edifice in place. So typical example of this franchising arrangements in Ghana is KFC. KFC can be one, Burger King can be another one, Total can also be another one. Okay. Now, McDonald's, thank you very much. I'm on for Pebiani. A true franchise, they want some all those things. All right, so they can all qualify to be franchising arrangement. So what are some of the benefits and drawbacks associated with licensing, for instance, licensing? The advantage is that to the licensee, there is low cost entry into the foreign market. In other words, if McDonald's or KFC decides to penetrate into the Ghanaian markets, they are going to experience low cost of entry, because the one that will be securing the license to operate over here is going to incur all the costs that were supposed to be borne by the parent company. And for that matter, the fee that will be paid to the parent company to come and standardize their operations over here is going to be an addition to their revenue. Now, another advantage is that it also allows for rapid market penetration. If McDonald's or KFC had decided to come here and do their own research to see whether their products will fly, it is going to take some time. But when they go through this subcontracting or licensing route, it means that exercise will have to be conducted by someone that is already on the ground in Ghana. And that will help KFC to enter into Ghanaian markets with ease, as well as with the alacrity it deserves. And there is minimal investment and risk for the licensor. So KFC headquarters in USA, whether the Ghanaian one is making profit or not, that one resides on the hard work on their Ghanaian counterparts. All that they are interested in is to ensure that their Ghanaian counterparts are not doing anything that violates the human rights or the labor law in Ghana, and also they are not doing anything illegal that can bring their brand into disrepute. So far as they are doing something right, then it is still their brand that is being extended and given a reputable image. So all the risk will be borne by the licensee. Now, it also comes with a number of disadvantages, some of which include that there is less control over the use of intellectual properties. In fact, KFC may be in US, but they will not be in a position to give close monitoring of the activities of KFC in Ghana. So if in reality, KFC in Ghana is doing something that may jeopardize the interest of customers and eventually give its brand a bad name, because their intellectual property has been licensed out to another party to utilize, and they may not be able to remotely control from US, we construe that they have less control once the licensing agreement is endorsed. there is also a potential loss of competitive advantage if the licensee becomes a competitor. So just imagine, say, the original brain behind KFC Ghana is Eddie's Pizza. I hope you're all familiar with Eddie's Pizza. I'm not sure if they are here, but Accra, they are quite common over there. So Eddie's Pizza is also into the sale and preparation of pizza, the varied ones. Pizza, you can attest to the variety of pizza that they have. Now, assuming Eddie's Pizza, who is also a competitor in that line of business, is the brain behind the management of KFC Ghana, eventually they will be learning the trades, the ins and outs of KFC. And with the passage of time, they may decide to abrogate their licensing agreement with KFC and operate under the label or the name of Eddie's Pizza, but still go ahead to be selling some of the products of KFC. Now, if this happens, then we can say that Eddie's Pizza, which hitherto was the licensee of KFC USA, will now be engaging in fierce competition with KFC, because now they will be replicating all the activities of KFC in Ghana without necessarily having to pay any fee to them, because they are now using a different label altogether. And this is particularly pronounced in this technology industry. So firms that are into the development of technology. So you realize that Apple or Microsoft as a company, which has its headquarters in USA, may decide to license some of its software and patents to companies in China for either distribution or production purposes. But with the passage of time, some of these Chinese giants will now be flooding the market with Chinese versions of iPhones and Microsoft products, which may not necessarily be endorsed by Microsoft, but because they have the know-how and the technology now, they will now be replicating it in other jurisdictions, which the profit will not be going to these software giants. So that is what we are saying, that it is a risk that you can take, but in the long run, you may suffer some disadvantages or demerits. Now, on subcontracting, which I indicated earlier on that it involves the degree to which a firm will outsource part of its production process or services to a third party to carry them out. It also has its own advantages and disadvantages. So when we say a firm is outsourcing its components of production to another firm to do, the advantage is that the firm can take the firm can seize opportunity to save costs by utilizing cheap labor or cheap production costs in the country where the subcontracting is occurring. They may also have access to specialized skills and technology which may not be available at the country where the headquarters is located. And this brings about flexibility in their production capacity. So what that will mean is that the company that will be dealing or handling the subcontracting can decide to specialize in the production of an aspect of the company's product. So if you take the automobile industry, most of these automobile giants like Toyota, they have subcontracted the production of, for instance, the tires to other companies to be doing it. The production of the windshields, the production of the chairs that are found in the car, to other companies to be doing that. Because such companies can do it with the cutting-edge technology at a cheaper rate, and that will also help them to beat down the cost of their cars to a more to a fee that can be patronized by the masses. But it comes with disadvantages. One of the disadvantages has to do with quality control concerns, because the company that will be carrying out your subcontracts also rely on their own technology resources through either human or non-human. There is the likelihood that the standard that was set by the parent company may not be met by these companies, even though in the initial stages, they are likely to present products that meet the standards they desire. And so the question then is, to what extent can these quality control issues be monitored and maintained? And it is a question that these multinational enterprises need to think about. And if they are okay, they may decide to go with the licensing and subcontracting option. If there are still more questions and issues to be thrashed out, as far as control issues are concerned, then it will be important to save your company's image by not engaging subcontractors that are not cut out for the job. There is also the likelihood for the parent company to become dependent on the subcontractor's performance. In other words, if the output of the subcontractor becomes your input, then anytime they are not forthcoming, it can also cripple your operations. And this may not give you a desirable image. So as much as possible, before you decide to opt for this licensing and subcontracting option, you must be able to discern whether your subcontractor is a dependable one that you can trust. And there is also the potential to lose your intellectual property or know-how if it is not properly protected. So whereas you may have laws in USA or in Europe protecting you as far as the patent to your operations is concerned, maybe when you go to China, their operation may be free falls, wherein the operations may be free fall, wherein any person can just copy and duplicate the know-how of other people. So if that is the case, then you have to think twice about the market where you are going to subcontract. But if they have protectorate laws and regulations over there, that can still help you to have your know-how and intellectual property in place. Then you can go ahead and use the licensing or subcontracting as an avenue to enter into the business markets. So that is it about licensing and subcontracting. The next one we are going to consider is outsourcing. Outsourcing. So outsourcing is said to be a form of subcontracting. And if you paid attention, when I was explaining the subcontracting, I use the word interchangeably over there. But there are some gray areas and nuances which I want you to pay attention to. And research suggests that beginning in the 1990s, most firms began to conduct their international trade by using the outsourcing routes. So they began to subcontract with foreign firms to do more than just produce their products. And this particular strategy is embraced by firms that find themselves in the digital economy. So firms that are into the production and development of computer chips, internet technology-related services, and business processes that rely on technology. The main reason or motivation for firms to use this outsourcing routes is just like that of the ones that utilize the licensing and subcontracting routes. So it is essentially to reduce cost of production and take advantage of cheap labor or become pretty much closer to the source of raw material. But they are also interested in maintaining the same quality and standard of their products. And once they are able to give out part of their operational activity for another firm to do, it also helps them to concentrate their strategic initiative on aspect of the organization, which is more pressing. So in general parlance, outsourcing is said to be the practice of hiring a third-party company, or it could be a single individual to perform tasks that are handled. Besides performing tasks, it could also be to handle operations or provide services that would have traditionally been done in-house. So in HR, when we say we are outsourcing HR services or HR practices, it could be that a bank may decide to outsource its recruitment and selection process to an outsourcing agent, such as maybe Ghana Hakra, this Jobberman. So if they decide to outsource their recruitment and selection into the bank to Jobberman to do for them, that will construe as an outsourcing. So in strictly speaking, when you say outsourcing, that is the meaning behind it. But in relation to international HRM as a strategy to enter into the international business, when we say outsourcing, we are referring to the degree to which the parent company decides to hire a third-party company to perform certain duties or responsibilities or services on part of the parent company. And what are some of the key features that characterize outsourcing as an entry strategy for international business? So it may involve various functions, including manufacturing of the company's products, providing services for the company, and this may be attending to customers' requests and complaints. It may even be IT services where the outsourced person may be doing it remotely. It may also be a back office that is erected to attend to the challenges and concerns raised by the company's customers. So companies often use outsourcing as an entry strategy. Usually in countries where they can find cheap labor and they can also find reduced cost for their materials. So this means that outsourcing can be done domestically or internationally. And some of the benefits, as I indicated, include cost saving, where you can get cheap labor or cheap cost of raw materials. And the disadvantage, as far as outsourcing is concerned, is that you stand a chance of losing control over the outsourced functions or process, because the materials and the labor that is being manned by the outsourced agents to produce something for you, it's not under your control. It is under the control of the outsourced agent. And so if they are not forthcoming, it can also affect the operations of the parent company. Quality control issues may also become a challenge to outsourcing, particularly if the standard that you have set cannot be followed through to the latter by the outsourced company. And so if you are okay with these concerns that the agent you are outsourcing your services or manufacturing activities to can come through and deliver, then you can utilize it as a strategy to enter into the international markets. Let me see if I've left anything out. All right. Now, the next penetration strategy is offshoring. Offshoring. And oftentimes, students use these terms interchangeably, but there is a difference. So, offshoring can be explained as the practice of relocating a firm's business processes, services, or if you like, production to a foreign country, typically to take advantage of low cost of labor, cheap raw materials, or any favorable economic conditions that may be presently available over there. So what this means is that offshoring involves the relocation of one or more aspects of a firm's business processes to a location in another country for the purposes of at least lowering costs. And that particular function will now be performed by an entity of the firm, but in an offshore location. So unlike outsourcing, where the function or the services will be performed by a different entity, in offshoring, the services will be performed by an entity that is owned by the parent company. So the difference here is that the control of this new entity can still be coordinated from the headquarters. So typically, some of the advantages of offshoring includes cost savings, but there is also high level of control and coordination from the headquarters. But some of the challenges is that any form of political or economic instability can destabilize the parent company, because unlike in outsourcing, where the risk is borne by the outsourced company, in offshoring, the risk in setting up this venture is borne by the parent company. So whenever there is political or economic instability, the shocks can be experienced by the parent company. So as an example of an offshoring entry strategy, you can think about, let's say, an automobile manufacturer in Japan. So Toyota in Japan decides to offshore its production process to Ghana and also to China to take advantage of lower labor costs and access to the growing African markets. If that is what they are doing, then we can liken it to offshoring. Now, the next to look at is what we call wholly owned subsidiary. Wholly owned subsidiary. So this means that the entry strategy of the domestic firm will be to own another subsidiary in a different jurisdiction. But through what route? The subsidiary can be developed from scratch. If it is being developed from scratch, that is, they will get their own land, put a building on it, and set up their own manufacturing processes and procedures. Then we liken it to the Greenfield project, which simply involves acquiring an open field in order to build subsidiary facilities from scratch. Then you can also have a brownfield project wherein they may decide to purchase an existing facility. So they maybe when they look at Ghana within the Tema Business Enclave, they might have identified a facility which is well positioned for producing, let's say, tires or sachet, what can I say, plastic cups. If that is the intention of buying that facility to do, then that can be likened to a brownfield, which means that they are not starting from scratch, but they have identified a facility that will give them an edge to become closer to their raw material, their laborers, as well as their targeted market. And the third option, as far as the wholly owned subsidiary is concerned, is wherein they may decide to purchase or acquire an existing enterprise that already has a ready market to patronize their goods and services, and that may also have the right distribution channels laid out. So if you may not want to start from scratch, but you may want to fall on another company that is doing well, but you may want to elevate it to a particular standard that makes international standardization, then you may decide to go for the acquisition option. Now, still on acquisition option, a distinction can be made between mergers and acquisition. Mergers and acquisition. So what do we mean when we say mergers, merging or mergers? Whenever two or more international firms decides to put their resources and effort together in order to remain as a global giant or force to reckon with in their community of practice, then we will have mergers. So typically, when we say merging or that we have obtained mergers, it simply means that there is a transaction in which two companies combine to form a new entity. And typical example is Airtel Tigo. I'll say Airtel used to be a standalone telecommunication company, whilst Tigo also used to be a standalone telecommunication company under the Bharti Group of Communications. But they were struggling to outcompete Vodafone as well as MTN. In fact, their main target was MTN. And so they thought it wise that in order to make... Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you all hear me? Hello, are you all there?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
they thought it
Very
wise
kind.
that in order to stamp their authority in the telecommunication industry in Ghana, it was important for them to merge as two entities so that they can fight with their other competing rivals. And what are the implications of merging? What are the implications? In fact, for us HR people, when we say two companies are merging, what are the implications or lessons there for us to consider and pay attention to? Whenever mergers occur, there is an integration of workforce. So the two companies that are coming together are going to bring together their different workforce. Airtel will be coming on board with its workforce, whilst Airtel and the Airtel Tigo, and Tigo will be coming on board with its own category of workforce. And the HR role here is to forge a cultural environment wherein these two different workforce will fit and work successfully for the new entity to realize its mission and vision. But of course, the integration of the workforce of the two companies that are now forming a new entity will also mean that the HR will have to reduce the redundancies in it. So definitely there will be restructuring. And whenever there are so many hands chasing few jobs, as we learned in human resource planning, one of the action plans that can be introduced is what? Laying off people. So there will be definitely retrenchment exercise. And there should be packages in place that will not contravene the labor law arrangements after the merging exercise has occurred. So that is very much important for us as HR people. There's also the need for HR people to be concerned about how they can harmonize the HR policy of the two merging entities, because they are not going to operate as two different entities under the new label. They are now going to have a common HR policy and procedure. So how do you navigate around this? Which one will supersede the other? So that will become a huge concern for the HR department to iron out, which means that they will have to peruse the competing HR policies that were utilized by both Airtel and Tigo, and the ones that will cut out for their new entity that they are developing will stand the test of time. So HR, that is why we are saying HR policy and practices may need to be harmonized across the merged entities to ensure consistency and fairness. There is also the need for us as HR people to be concerned about change management, because the changes that the workforce and the new entity is going to go through needs to be approached with the carefulness and tact it deserves. And managing change here has to be done effectively. It is critical to do this effectively because if you don't manage the change carefully, you are likely to create a lot of disruptions. And these disruptions will not also utter well for your customers. In fact, when some of these changes are not managed properly, it can also affect the morale and the level of productivity of the surviving workforce. So as much as possible, the change management accompanying the merging exercise needs to be done effectively. Now, what about acquisition? Acquisition simply means that there is a transaction in which one company purchases another company. So in Ghana, a typical example of acquisition that we can cite is the Telecel experience. As you are all aware, Vodafone is no longer, but it has now been labeled as what Telecel because Telecel owns a higher percentage in their market share. And this implies Telecel has purchased the highest share in the operations of Vodafone. So that is a typical example of acquisition.
Okay.
Now, what are some of the implications of acquisition? Because we are saying that one firm purchases the other, usually key strategic positions after the acquisition exercise, key strategic positions will suffer. So the firm that is purchasing the outgoing firm will have to replace some of the individuals occupying the key or strategic position. Because under normal circumstances, so as HR practitioners, one of our concerns borders on workforce retention. Retaining key talents from the acquired company is crucial to ensure a smooth transition and maintenance of business continuity. Even though key positions are going to be filled, it has to be approached with an open and transparent mind. Now, at the end of the day, you will have to peruse and identify which of these strategic positions, which when touched, may affect the operations of the company. So if there are some key positions, you have to let them continue operating, because such people have their eyes on the ground and their omission will not augur well for the company. You will have to consider and let them be in position, provided they have the right competencies and expertise to help the new entity flourish. In the same vein, on what basis are you going to sack people? The retrenchment exercise that usually follow acquisition. Usually when acquisition occurs, the new entity will have to jettison some individuals and lay them off. But what should be the basis of this layoff? The performance appraisal and the performance records of all individuals in the acquired company will be perused. And those that have questionable performance outcomes are the ones that will be targeted first to be laid out. But there is also the need for cultural alignment to occur as far as acquisition is concerned. And this is similar to mergers. And this is important because HR play a key role in aligning the culture of the acquiring and the acquired company. For all you know, the Vodafone culture that employees were operating in may be different from the Telecel culture that is coming on board. So the role of HR now is to ensure that they are able to forge a new and embracing culture within which the old staff of Vodafone and the staff that is being brought by Telecel can flourish.
Sir, please, your screen is off.
Oh, is that the case?
Yes, sir.
It's from her end.
Felicia, check again because I haven't touched my screen, okay?
Okay, sir.
All right. Frimpong.
Yes, so I wanted to inform you that we have another class now.
Hey, boy. Okay. Then, in fact, I am done. I am done with my explanation. So let me land. Then, you go wide. I think the HR implications. So I am done for today. The last thing that I want you people to see is the you can say joint venturing. There is straightforward. When you say joint venturing, Joint venturing simply means that there is a strategic alliance between two or more companies from different countries to pursue a specific business objective. And what usually this means is that these two or more companies will form a different company altogether in a different country. So maybe MTN, Telecel, and Airtel to Go will come together to form a strategic alliance and form a different telecommunication company altogether for the Asian sub-region. If this occurs, then we have international joint venture. And one of the key reasons why international joint venturing occurs is that it helps them to spread the risk that is involved in entering into that international markets. So that is essentially what it is. And I have an assignment for you. Frimpong. Hello, Frimpong.
Sir.
Take a screenshot of this.
I'm here.
Take a screenshot of this and then send it to your colleagues. In fact, I'll share the slides with you after class. Next week, the class will be divided into two, and you do presentations on this. So I will share the groupings to you, and then you will make preparation towards it for next week's meeting. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So, and one more thing. It's about Franchi.
Yeah.